Hey, how you doing? Brent Sebold back with you from Arizona State University Entrepreneurship and Innovation. We're talking about venture development models, and I'm sharing with you a new model. Well, I don't know if it's new. It's a piecemealed model from lessons we've learned running a whole series of competitions with plenty of funding, over $1 million of funding here. Incubators we've had dating back to the mid-90s. And then accelerators, we've been practicing with this model since the early 2010s, so just within this past decade. So a lot of lessons learned. As we've rolled out each one of those models, we've found kind of very consistent pain points, 3 specifically that have bubbled up to really be a thorn in our side, specifically within higher ed. So I've already talked about the first 2. The third one I want to walk through, symptoms related to artificially constrained cycles. And then the big one here is we don't want to have any zombie founders mucking up the works as we're on constant patrol for the unicorn that's going to put our institution on the map. And that is a thing, right? So I'm not denying we're not looking for the next big thing, because the next big thing is going to create 1 million jobs. It's going to create massive economic and social impact. So we need to have those singles, doubles, triples, home runs, and grand slams as it relates to developing ventures. But in the meantime, as we're hoping to develop those, we are not going to turn our backs on those early neophyte entrepreneurs that statistically we know are more likely to make an impact in the economy and society when they're in their 40s, long after they've left us here in higher education. So let's look at the timing as it relates to employing one of the 3 legacy models of a competition, an incubator, and/or an accelerator. Okay, so I've already set up this challenge. This is one of 3 challenges. So let's look at the symptoms. So very painful. You've been in this situation before, right? So you just closed the application window for your annual competition. I've done this a million times, right? What is bound to happen literally the next day, if not the hour that, we have to have very rigid deadlines. Of course, like you, we'll always let in a few people, stragglers on the back. Literally the next day, hey, I just found out about entrepreneurship and innovation at ASU. I'm so psyched. I'm really into entrepreneurship. Are there any do you guys have funding, or do you have any programs to help? And it's like, oh my gosh, young lady or sir or whoever you are that walked in I'm like, literally, we just had a deadline yesterday. You just missed it. I'm so sorry. That's like a horrible conversation to have. In some cases, depending on how that goes, it's like, well, hey, hustle, go fill out this, 1-page application, do a pitch deck, do your executive summary, send it in, and we'll see what we can do. But generally, what the answer needs to be there, and we'll get to this, is, hey, yeah, you missed. Well, actually, it's funny you come in. We just had this competition that closed yesterday, or this opportunity that ended yesterday. But good news, you only have to wait a couple more weeks. In the meantime, we'll get you set up, and you can come into the program very, very soon, right? So we'll get to that. The other thing too, and that's mostly focused on competitions. As it relates to accelerators, we found that when you set up those sprints, right? So you've got your cohort of your accelerator ventures, operationally, you can only do that, 3-4 times a year and stay sane. So there's always going to be those on-ramps. And because of the high investment of resources into an accelerator and into most incubators, the entry point into that venture development program is going to be relatively narrow. So even if the person gets their act together and submits a legitimate application, there's a high likelihood that he or she might not be ready for an incubator or an accelerator venture development program at that stage. So what have we done here in having years of those painful conversations? We've learned that, hey, we're in higher ed. Why not embrace the academic calendar, right? So all of our students and all of our faculty and depending on how long they've been gone, some of our alumni as well are very in tune with the academic cadence of the year. So as you're thinking about deadlines, do not, this is a big lesson I learned personally, and our management teams have learned, is don't turn your back on the academic calendar, and don't be afraid to sync up your programmatic offerings and deadlines with the deadlines that primarily the students are used to, corresponding with the first day of school, midterms, finals week, so on and so forth. So I would encourage my colleagues, like we have done, it's worked out very well, and this even helps too when you're looking years ahead. Our registrar in the provost's office have looked years ahead at what these calendars are going to look like. That gives us an opportunity to very clearly map on all of the major components of any venture development program, not just this year or even next month, but years from now. So we have a very clear picture of what's to come. So instead of saying, yeah, we've got to loop back with our donor, we've got to loop back with our VP and set up the next opportunity for you to come into the program, we'll let you know. Just sign up to our mailing list and we'll let you know. The flip side of that is, hey, we know at this date, every single year moving forward, you're going to have an opportunity to come into the program, start the venture development process, and then, as I'll share with you here in a minute, compete for the other ingredients, funding and space. And then, in terms of the accelerator style sprints, which oftentimes will map onto like a month or a period of time, whether it's a fall or a spring or a summer or otherwise, that's great. But as we know, the holy grail of the end of that sprint or at the end of that stay within the incubator is to get across the valley of death, get a term sheet, and go out into the wild and scale. In most cases, unless you're doing a lifestyle business, which is totally legit, we want to pay homage to the experience of being a student, of being within higher ed, knowing that it's not make or break at the end of your accelerator program, that you just made it into by the skin of your teeth. That's actually just the beginning. So we'll do a sprint followed by a repeat of that sprint and a repeat and a repeat. So it's a longitudinal, iterative process, and we're going to continue to assess you quarterly, the same way an accelerator would, but singularly. We're going to assess you quarterly and hope that all of that feedback and all of that assessment is going to lead toward better decision making when it comes to go-to-market strategy, product development, product road mapping, all that fun stuff. Okay, so let's see. In terms of programming within the venture development offering, whether it's a competition or whether it's an incubator, an accelerator, we tend to think in a linear, like, okay, here's all the things you need to know about the basics of entrepreneurship, right? Here's all the things you need to know about the basics of company formation. Here's all the things you need to know about IP protection and marketing and so on and so forth. So it's kind of this level up, like if you get this, then you're ready to get X dollars more. You're then able to go into this space over here, so on and so forth. So that's been a challenge for us. Having the right people in the right room at the right time is very constrictive from a resource standpoint and from an end user standpoint. The other thing we have is folks that have come into these programs and do very well from a competition standpoint is those that just get kind of caught up in the mode of doing a great 5-minute pitch and kind of forgetting about the real mission, which is to develop a repeatable, scalable business model with paying customers and actual hundreds, thousands, millions of users. So those are two additional symptoms that we've identified when it comes to kind of the cadence of the main ingredients of these, this not only the model we're advancing now, the league model, but all the legacy model as well. So now with the league, we've tackled these things head on, and again, cyclical programming that allows for ventures to essentially not necessarily level up, but encourage a pivot to go back to square one. And so I don't want to sound like a broken record here in terms of the importance of failing fast and pivoting and packing up shop when it's right to pack up. But again, if you set up a leveling up where it's like you get 1,000, you get a 5,000, you get 10,000, you get 100,000, which we have the capacity to do here at ASU, it really falsely sets up expectations for people and practitioners to ignore the reality of the marketplace. So instead, cyclical is the approach we're taking. Is this bearing fruit? Is this as efficacious as we hope it will be? No, but in terms of program design, we're confident that this is the correct approach. And then in terms of competition, assessment, KPIs, metrics, all of those things that typically good mentors will do on an ongoing basis, we set up massive mechanisms for a meta cohort to do this quarterly. So again, taking a play from the sports analogy playbook, we set up mechanisms every fall and every spring called pitch playoffs. And then based on the results of the pitch playoffs, that feeds into what many of you already run yourselves, demo days. And demo days are the mechanisms by which funding and space resources are granted in a cyclical way. So it's not a one and done. We are still seeing zombie competition circuit folks, but again, that's an optimization of the model that I think we can figure out. So if you have any ideas on that, we're all ears, but at the end of the day, we want this to be an iterative, longitudinal, educational experience first and foremost. And in the process, if we pay homage to the real world in the marketplace, those unicorns will be a byproduct of this model. We hope, we think. So I can tell you, regardless if I'm right or wrong, or my colleagues and I are right or wrong, I sleep a lot better at night knowing we've got this league model in place as opposed to the models that we've experimented with over the better part of the last decade. I hope some of this was thought-provoking, and if you have concepts you'd like to share with us, please don't hesitate to email me or to reach out to anyone in this space. I look forward to meeting hopefully some of you at a conference or an event or something. Keep up the hard work, and let's continue to have fun in entrepreneurship and innovation in higher education.